In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the size menu. Now in this menu, you will find a number of variables for changing the lengths, the widths, and shape of your insole. These can be done manually, one at a time. We'll come back to these in a moment. Or we can say, this insole is going to be in a shoe of a known size and a known shape and a known grade. Therefore, we're not going to allow specific user-defined variables. We're just going to have grading. When I select the grading, it switches everything off with the exception of shell thickness and shell offset, but also the grading tables here. So whether you want to use standard international grading tables, such as US, here we can just change between the different sizes, or whether you want to create your own, which you can do here for your own range of shoes. Maybe you have a diabetic range of shoes, maybe you have a sports shoe that you have a specific grading table for. We can add that for you. But if you're using standard international grading, then as you'll see, the sliders will move to match grading, and the insole obviously will change to suit. Alternatively, if we want to have control ourselves over the shape of this insole, we can use the sliders. Here we can change the length to whatever we want. We can have that whatever size, whatever length we want. We can change the heel width. So if we perhaps get a better view of that, here we can change the heel width of the device. We can change forefoot width. Now the forefoot width is defined by the points we pick on our scan at the beginning of the workflow, but you can override that here by changing the slider. Okay, the other things we can do here are we can change some of the 3D shapes. So one of them is the length to first met, which is the one up here, and that is will shape the way in which the arch drops into the forefoot. So if I was just to increase my arch height a little here and come back into here, I can change the way in which the arch drops by changing this length to first met option. Okay, so that is effectively pushing the met head points either proximal or distal, but the effect is to change the way the arch drops. Okay, the other thing we can do is change the arch apex position. I got it deliberately wrong. So here, if I change the arch apex, it will move the medial and lateral arch together. And what I do here is I position my medial side only. I don't worry about the lateral side here. And then I rotate round and look at the lateral arch independently. Okay, and that will move independently of the medial arch. So option 1 moves both, and then the lateral arch on its own. Okay. So the other things we can do in here are we can change the shell thickness. It defaults to 3 millimeters, but I can change it to whatever I want. Maybe I'm making a flip-flop, or maybe I'm making something that doesn't require a very thick forefoot. And in the case of a shell, if I was to switch to a shell, which I can do immediately, why not? I can change the thickness of my shell, so the whole shell, not just the forefoot region. Okay. And finally, if I'm doing a fitting, if I've got a fit to my foot, I can use the shell offset. So for example, if I came into here now and went in and did a shrink fit very quickly onto my foot, I get this very close fit through here. But if I come into my sizing menu and pull my shell offset, you'll see that if I say 1 millimeter, I go back into my section tool and run through, you'll see that we now have a constant thickness been added all the way through. And that's an allowance for our top cover. And we can obviously zero that back out as well if we wish. So that just gives you an idea of how you might accommodate various thicknesses of top cover. So I think that covers everything in the size modifications menu. But remember, whenever you play with these numbers, you are coming away from graded values. So if you want it to fit a shoe, use grading. If you want it to be more about the foot and the shape of the foot, then you can use user-defined measurements.